All right, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for coming. This is really, really great. And thanks for coming. I wanted to start off a little bit differently than we normally would. I think in a situation like this, we normally start with the problem and then slowly we'll move towards the hope and the solutions. And I want to flip that around because when I hear the word literacy, I think, ugh, this is an enduring problem we're never going to fix. But then I got the chance to talk to all of you ahead of time, and I got the sense that no, there is movement here. There is something changing. This is something we can get involved in. So let's start there. First question, we're gonna get to the problems, don't worry. We'll get to the solutions, but let's start with the hope. Looking back at the last decade, catch me up. What successes have you seen? What's giving you hope that we are actually going somewhere to improve literacy?
Well, good morning, everyone. And Elise, I really appreciate that you're starting off with what's happening that gives us hope. And we know that this complex problem has many sides to it. And in the last decade, and specifically in the last most recent 5 years, when we think about the ever-produced research that's coming out that is directly related to see long-term impacts over time, the different view of how we use data to make change and how we understand technically, but also humanly, how it is we address the literacy challenges before us. And quite frankly, in the last 2.5 years, the things that really give me hope, first and foremost, are the fact that we have really clear focus on this issue. And it's not that it wasn't present in public education before. Teachers have always been committed to literacy, always. Classrooms are getting more challenging. There are increasing pressures. What gives me hope is the focus around the direct teaching skills that we are able to support and identify and prioritize. You know, sometimes we focus on so many things. We need to do everything. And at the end of the day, in my role, I ask myself a lot, Joanne, if nothing else, you will, and I finish off that sentence. And literacy is one of them. And that specific change speaks specifically to what it is we provide every school. And so within our organization, publishing our literacy framework focused on foundational skills and naming them that must happen in every school differently than we did before is what gives me hope. The second piece to combine with that, and our MLA reference, the new ELAL curriculum for K-3 that really calls out and lays out the groundwork for the specific outcomes that lead to reading capabilities and do that over time is a game changer. The combination of those two give me great hope.
Thanks, Joanne. How about you, Sarah?
Oh, so much. We're here today. We're here talking about it. It's a community conversation with elected representatives from multiple levels of government that are here to talk about the importance. In the last decade, we've seen use of libraries increase. It was referenced, you know, would people come to libraries anymore? And gosh, we have over 57% of Calgarians as active library members. And that includes so many more children and families. We have created early learning centers at 13 libraries across the city, and they are being used more than ever before, and our children's collections are being checked out more than ever before. I think it's also, for me, about collaboration, about the community partnership, which is what the library believes in and does so well. We're hosting you and all of these folks here today. We work more closely with school boards than we ever have before, and small organizations who might think, what can I do, are starting to see that they have a role to play in this too. Every single one of us in this community has a role to play in having an impact on literacy levels across the city and across the province. And we're not just talking about reactive responses, but we're thinking about proactive responses. And that's why Calgary Public Library's focus on early literacy has made such an impact. When you think about access and you think about understanding what the schools do well and how libraries can add surprise and delight to that early learning journey, getting kids ready for school, and then supporting them as they move up through the different grades. I think there's so much to be hopeful for, and today gives me hope because of this group of people who I know are committed to it, and you represent just a small percentage of other people in this community that care.
Thanks, Sarah. How about you, Bella?
So for the last decade or so, as an educator for Chilla Elementary, a lot of barriers have been just tremendous. For example, in order to go to the library from the nation of Satina, you need to pay a little over $100, and that's per person. And right there, that's a barrier for many of our families and our children. So it was really difficult. So a lot of what we did is we found ways to go around it. Our teachers that lived in Calgary, they were able to rent, and they rented many books. So that was our challenge. It's just that everyone takes for granted that, you know, everyone's treated the same, but we're not. It's really discouraging at times when we look at the amount of money that we're given for each child. We're not given the same amount for a child that's, say, in Calgary. So, but we still have to spend the same dollar for a book, the same dollar for material, supplies. And the cost is going up. And our budget is not. And that's our challenge. So right now, in the last 10 years, it's been getting better. We've had a great partnership with Calgary Library. They've come and brought their mobile bus where books would come on a weekly basis. Our children were able to bring books home with no cost. Now we can get library cards at no cost. And that's a significant change. A lot of people today, they don't know what we have to go through every day. They don't know that we have many barriers, but we don't go out and tell everybody. You know, we just do our best at what we can on the nation. In the last 10 years, again, I said it's been getting better, but the last 4 years, it kind of took a dive due to COVID. And also the challenges of intergenerational challenges of the residential system that was imposed upon our grandchildren and our grandparents and our parents, including myself. I'm a survivor. It doesn't go away. It's there every day in some shape or form. But with what we have today, that's a start. It's a start in the right direction. Because we need to collaborate, we need to work together, we need to build relationships, so that way our children will be successful, our children will thrive.
Thank you, Bella. I appreciate that. Thank all of you. Before we get to the next question, we had mentioned the Padlet up there. What you just heard is a bit of an exercise in collective history. The three of them have shared what they've seen over the last 10 years. Many of you have seen something happening in the field of literacy in the last 10 years, and if you'd like to, you could add that as well to the Padlet. What's happened in the last 10 years to bring us up, to help us really know this file? And we're going to move on to really better understanding the problem and the challenge that we face right now. I met a woman back in 2009 who really opened my eyes on this. She told me her story, and so I want to just read a little snippet of that to introduce this question. No one in her school knew Natasha Como couldn't read. When her turn came, the teenager would slouch back into her desk and cross her arms and sneer, as if she was way too cool to read. I'd refuse and I'd get a 0. Everyone just thought I was just a stubborn girl, said Como, who's now 25. I was stuck for a long time. Living without being able to read was a constant game of cover-up. If she went to a restaurant, she would hold the menu up just long enough to fool people and then make her pick based on the photos. No one ever clued in that she couldn't read. Her parents didn't even know, and she dropped out of school in grade 10. When I met her, it was because she had kids herself, and she finally found the courage to admit the problem and get help. And her grit and that determination to tackle this problem after so many years really stuck with me. And so that's my segue into understanding the problem. The question I want to ask you is, how do you describe the literacy problem in Alberta? How can it be that children don't learn to read? And how serious of a problem does this province have? Do you want a minute, Bella, to think, or would you like to start us off?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges we're having with literacy in this most current state has a lot to do with, background, your family background. A lot has to do with what's available for our students in this day and age. A lot of them have cell phones, current technology, and I find that they're able to connect with each other conveniently and rapidly, but yet not grammatically correct, and that's a challenge, a big one. So it's almost like you need to talk to your child through this cell phone, basically, which is really unfortunate, but we really want to make those changes. I know we need to move ahead in technology, digital basis, I get that, but we still need to have a face-to-face conversation with our students and our children, and they need to know how to socialize and connect with each other, and I find that that's a really big gap happening. I've kind of noticed that I've been teaching since the 90s, and I see it's not getting better. It's actually really, it's a big challenge, and I'm sure it's a challenge for all schools. And another challenge is basically, well, for us, the barrier is, again, our children are coming from homes that, what's more important, your food on your table or a book? What's more important, having your lights on? You know, and another challenge is, like when we went into online learning, there'd be 6 children at home and not the greatest Wi-Fi, if any Wi-Fi, and 1 laptop. That's a challenge. So, you know, we take for granted that everyone's the same, we're not. And also, for our nation, our reserve stretches up to Bear Creek. So we don't have cell towers there. If any, I live kind of in the middle. So, you know, it's difficult even for myself. So that's a lot of challenges that we have, but it's mostly, I'd say, basically our families, their needs. Literacy's not there. It's not the foremost challenge or foremost what they need. They need the basic necessities of just getting by. And how can we do better?
Thank you. I appreciate you putting that perspective on it. Sarah, how about you? How would you describe the scale of the problem in Alberta?
You know, I think it's challenging because we have been talking about it, and we're talking about it more now, but we're still seeing the impacts. We're still seeing that those numbers aren't increasing. Literacy rates aren't increasing in the way we want to. So I'm hopeful about the community perspective and the ways in which we're changing. But that is discouraging, and it's frustrating. And there are intergenerational impacts of low literacy that we need to tackle as a community. The library has an approach that is about access, that's not just about, you know, access within our facilities, but how we can reach out into communities. We think about how we can reach out to daycares, how we can reach out to day homes, how we can really focus our efforts in the places that they're needed the most, and access has been a really important part for the library over the last 10 years. You're right, Bella, for years there was a non-resident fee for library cards, and that change, thanks to support from the province, made an enormous difference. we find ways to get out and to serve those needs where they are, but there's always more to be done. And I think we see it in families coming in. My daughter struggled to learn how to read despite lots of supports. We had to go through, multiple resources from the library and with teachers and with experts. And I think we continue to see that in families, is those additional supports and this piece about learning how to connect post-pandemic and build those relationships. I think a lot about, sort of that age range up to grade 3, where if you don't learn how to read well by grade 3, after that, you're reading to learn. And if you don't do that, if you don't achieve that at that point in time, it becomes a lot harder. Prescient to that story you told, right? And so that's why I think it's about access, it's about destigmatizing this idea of literacy and finding ways to support. And it is that community connections. It's multiple organizations thinking about what role they can take to make a difference.
You're already jumping ahead to the solutions. Joanne, could you help us just understand, you see the data, you see the classrooms, what is the problem?
Well, in terms of how large the problem is, and certainly Ken referenced the published piece by Janet Lane, goes through a range of data sets. When we think about our province, and I've worked across the province in both far north, southeast, and now here in kind of the middle, and the problems remain the same level. So pre-pandemic, we were between 20 and 25% of students K to 3 not achieving grade level reading skills. Now, post-pandemic, for a whole range of complex issues, when we look at what our data is telling us, that students coming into kindergarten, when assessed, we're looking at 40% coming in not ready with developmental skills. This puts an inordinate amount of pressure on utilizing finite amounts of time with many other competing demands on teachers to focus. And when we think about that prioritization, there are many beautiful things about the education system. Along with that goes a high degree of expectation about all of those many different things. This issue, early literacy, is number one and must be number one, because sense of belonging comes from being able to access learning. And for me personally, just to kind of bring it from a high data standpoint, I started off teaching grade 8 and 9 language arts and social studies in Northern Alberta. And of my class of, at that time, many years ago, 29, over half of the boys in my class could not read at grade level. And I remember struggling with this weight every day and trying to figure out what I could do. I did not know what to do, first and foremost. I would like to state that. I knew how to connect. I knew how to design according to the grade level curricular outcomes. I did not know how to intervene. And when I think back to, so I said, well, I should go down into elementary school. So I went to teach grade 6. Felt even more of a failure. It was amazing. I loved putting myself at a point of, I don't know what to do. I need to learn more. So then I went to grades 1 to 3 and my most revered teachers, kindergarten teachers, and taught alongside as a partner teacher, and then moved into administration to look to see how I could make that impact. We must understand that the prioritization of addressing that and how significant the issue is directly related to everything we're talking about in mental health, everything we're talking about in terms of how we as a community come together. This issue isn't just about data, this is about story and community, and that's why early literacy, top priority.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I can't imagine feeling responsible for these kids and not knowing what to do, right? That brings us into the next question, because I want to start talking about solutions. And I wanted to start with, we do talk about the role of institutions. you're all connected to schools and libraries, but how about everybody? How about the parents and the grandparents and the neighbors and all of us in community? I mean, we're not trained. I'm a mom. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. But we love these kids, right? So how much responsibility do the families carry? And what's the role of the family and the community here to make sure that these kids are not left unread? What do we need to do differently that way? Bella, should we start with you again?
So I did have a chance to kind of review what the Dene down south, Navajo, do and how we're really successful with the immersion program that they had going way back in the 70s. And so coming up now, what Chilla is doing along with the Tina Nation is that we're incorporating our language back in. And so by doing that, we're like, we can only do it using a instructor, but the challenge was it wasn't creating full speakers. So they had to revamp, rethink, and over the years of our education system, they brought in Gunaha Institute. So they were able to kind of take the language and start getting it right directly from our speakers, and then bring it back into the schools and try and teach it that way. It worked for so long, however, that still we had a few flaws. So we had to pause our language and culture programs just this past year. And what that entailed was to have our instructors learn off directly from the elders and knowledge keepers. Everyone has to be involved in this. And also, we noted that we needed our instructors to be going to school as well, to become teachers. So we do have University of Calgary helping us, and we do have University of British Columbia as well. So we do have some helping hands. And then I had another chance to go visit a school that's up north, Onion Lake, and they have a full immersion program. And I looked at their books, and it's all in their language, and they're all speaking it. The children are singing songs and dancing to it, which is so remarkable. Oh my goodness. So I know from our point of view, it's getting there, but our students need to know who they are and they need to be proud of themselves. In order to do that, they need to know their language, their culture, their traditions, because it's important for us, and we want to thrive with what we have. And it's little small steps, but I do see, a significant difference. They just love to say our prayer in the mornings, and when we don't say the prayer, we forget. They're right there to remind us, we didn't say the prayer. When are we going to say the prayer? So it's really important that, they have to have a sense of belonging, totally agreement on that, but they also have to be, have the backbone of who they are. Because a lot of them, due to the intergenerational challenges, a lot of family breakdowns, a lot of unparenting, a lot of grandparenting, a lot of trial family. There's a lot of reasons, but I think that we just need to really incorporate our language into our schools, and not have it as a separate teaching, but a combination of collaboration and integrating into our lessons. And that's what we're doing, and we are seeing some results, good results. But again, it's going to take a long time for us.
Yeah, thank you for that. It gives good insight. How about for you, Sarah? What do you think about the role of the family and community?
Well, I'm going to say you have to have a library card. And because that's my role, right? Have a library card, come visit, build library visits into your family habit, and read together. I always say that everything you ever needed to know can be found in a picture book. And there's more publishing and there's more picture books that represent many of the Treaty 7 languages here. So much more diversity in our collections so kids can see themselves and can imagine. And read in your home language, read in the language of your grandparents, and tell stories. Storytelling is such an important way of helping kids build those early literacy skills and get ready for kindergarten, which is what we want. I think, there's such great questions on this Padlet, one of which is about low literacy and intergenerational challenge, and it is. It's prescient to that story that you told. It's prescient to people, newcomers that come, that want their kids to learn English and sometimes feel like they should speak to them in English versus in their home language. And the more words that a kid hears in all different languages, incorporating it into your life, those are the things that are going to help create a better future and help address some of the challenges that we're seeing. And, we just finished one of Calgary Public Library's biggest programs called the Ultimate Summer Challenge. Every year we run this program and it's not just one program, it's so many programs that support and address summer slide, that gap between the end of school and when school starts. And it's about learning all summer long. It's about reading as many books as you can, and audiobooks count too, and graphic novels, and magazines, and ways that we can make learning and reading and literacy fun. You could even come to Calgary Public Library and read to dogs if you're practicing reading out loud and don't want to do it to your own classroom. Well, you can practice to a dog who will listen without judgment, although they might fall asleep. So I think there's this piece of, it's a serious topic, but we have to bring surprise and delight to it as well, because those are the things that help build connection, those are the things that help build excitement, and those are the things that are really going to make a difference.
Thank you. How about you?
Well, Sarah, I really appreciate, first of all, that you renew my library books automatically. Yes, thank you. It was a relief yesterday. But further to that, I think the connections between community and schools, and also what you framed as surprise and delight and language and identity, all come from also helping families. So while we have a sense of urgency around what must be learned, it's also creating the conditions for surprise, for delight, for joy, for different perspectives, and to use that family time not as a time to drill something, but as a time to explore through language, to create those softened edges. And the library, alongside the work that many teachers do in trying to provide supportive resources, are really important to that. As a community, and I know we've got many different community organizations here, and everyone wants to assist, and sometimes it's that understanding of how we create the cadence of that, and where we prioritize those supports, both within formalized education as well as external to community. But creating the summer programs, creating the challenges, utilizing all of the resources that we have that families should not have to pay for, and shouldn't have to worry that they're going to be fined or that there's a book fee coming or other components. It's a small thing, but it's not. And it causes people to come. And so from my perspective as a community, and our role in public education is really to support our families in community outside of what happens within the classroom.
Thank you for that. We're getting to my last question, so that means that it's time for all of you to make sure you've added your question to the Padlet. We're going to get to those next. I already see a really great question here about destigmatizing low literacy, which I love because I have been a print reporter for 15 years, so I thought everybody reads the newspaper, right? Everybody gets the newspaper, of course you're gonna read everything I write, which is not true. And I'm working through how can we make our written words more accessible too, so I love that question. But last question for you to put you on the spot here. Thinking back on the systems and the processes and the government actions and all of that, let's get really concrete in this. If you imagine a future where low literacy isn't a concern, what are 2 steps that you've got the floor, what are 2 steps that you think need to be taken next? Would you like to start again?
Sure. I think the first step would be, in our mind, we know literacy is about reading, but, you know, in our Indigenous sense, learning is not really literacy, it's just like understanding each other and caring for each other's experiences and being respectful. I think that's really number one. Like what we do at our schools to get our parents in is inviting them with a dinner. You know, there's no catch, you know, you don't have to pay a fee, you know, just come. And then just talk and get their idea of what they would like. Because sometimes I think we're so focused on giving, and we're not really like checking to see, oh, how did that go? You know, we do a quick survey, you know, maybe we don't even read our survey sometimes. But the bottom line is that, you know, we have to get down and meet them, and as humans, you know, human beings, you know, not like teach it down, you know, like it just, because parents, they feel sometimes overwhelmed, or, you know, they're gonna look down on me. I didn't send my son, daughter, the last 2 weeks. You know, I think just getting them just to come. And that's been working for us. Like we've tried, you know, the other ways, and it hasn't been really successful. But we're trying something new this year again. We'll keep on trying. And of course, you know, we always get them with food. We had ice cream. And then I think they all had sore stomachs because every place you have to go, you have to get one dish of ice cream. So it does work. It does work. Yeah.
Ice cream would work on me for sure. Sarah?
Well, everything's better with ice cream. What are the 2 things we need to do? You know, for me, it continues to come down to collaboration. We all need to see our role in literacy for the future of our kids, but also for our community right now. Every one of us has a role to play. Advanced education, the education system, Calgary Public Library, school teachers, but so many of the organizations and folks that are represented here. You every day can make a difference. You can model reading, you can tell stories, you can build community with ice cream, and you can start a meeting with a picture book. There are so many different ways to infuse literacy in our community, and I think that that's what's going to get us where we need to be, in partnership and in collaboration with identifying where real needs are, and then, as you said, building those relationships and getting to know how you can make a difference and what those real needs and barriers are. You know, I think about the access issue that we saw when we couldn't give library cards out to Indigenous folks living in Sutina, and we needed to make a change. That needed to be different. We needed to address that, and so you need to understand the barriers in order to remove them, and the only way to do that is getting to know community.
Thanks, for sure. Joanne?
I'll take it from the education perspective rather narrowly, and maybe from a systemic perspective. First and foremost, we need to make sure that we have adequate tools to be able to accurately describe where our students are at. So those simple assessments that don't take long periods of time, that allow for response down to an individual child, and that they're common, that they're understood, and they're not changing from school to school. So students move schools all the time, teachers move schools all the time. We need to have common understanding of assessments and the teaching practices that go with them. That's combined also with the resources, but that's number one. The second one is we need to have alignment in our post-secondary pre-service educational training to what is needed. So those are my two.
I think you have some fans out there, and you spoke directly to one of the questions in the Padlet here as well. Thanks to everybody who's already put in some great questions. I want to go to this one of the ones that came in early. There was recently a news article that came out that suggests the impacts from COVID-related loss of learning is greater than initially thought in children in grades 3 and 4. Thoughts on what needs to be done to overcome some of these learning losses and ensure that students have the necessary literacy skills for these kids? Who wants to take that on? Any?
I'll start.
I think you just want to put the minister on the spot, but
Yeah.
anyway.
I think I don't want to underrepresent the challenge that is being faced within classrooms currently. I think our teachers have and continue to do an incredible job trying to be responsive to a broader range of need within their classrooms as a result of COVID, changing demographics. These are significant realities. That's not about blaming anybody. And I think one of the other pieces out of today that's really important to me is we need to not look, where can we blame? Who can we blame for this problem? It's the question, what can we do? That's what our focus is. And when I think about this one around grades 3 and 4, we need to be careful about how we pace our work. And we need to create that flexibility, understanding the priority around how we can set up structures that can work within classrooms for intervention that isn't about pulling children out, that is about pushing in, and is about direct instruction focused on those specific areas of need for those students. In order to do that, we need to have easily used assessments that we understand, that are practical, quick, and can result in progress.
Thanks for that. How about you, Sarah?
As a large community organization, right, we need to be talking about it. We need to understand your data. We need to understand where the gaps are and the difficult circumstances that teachers are facing. And then we need to be aligned in how we can support, whether it's through programming, whether it's through resources, collaboration, and I'm speaking as a large community institution, but also there's so many smaller organizations that can support in small, direct ways that can have really deep impact. So it keeps coming back to my theme of collaboration.
Speaking of assessment tools, a lot of the assessment tools too, I believe, are outdated, and I find that a lot of companies are kind of like jumping on the bandwagon and not really thoroughly looking at research and just kind of like shoving it to us at a lower price. Yet it doesn't really have all the components for full whole language learning. That's what I noticed in the last 20 years. Another challenge is that we need to not also feel that the tools are the be-all, end-all, because a lot of challenges too, like for example, the PAT tests, they don't necessarily meet the needs of our students. And I've said that before. I've been involved in PAT tests with Alberta Ed. I've worked with Alberta Ed in different capacities. I've also kind of had that little short stay in that, trying to draft the language learning component that was thrown on the floor due to change of government. But what I'm noticing is that it just needs to be revamped to meet our current needs. When you look at what's going on in the world today, our children aren't in straight rows, and we're not governed by basically having our children go out to the field of, different jobs that we had maybe 20 years ago. It's changing, and I find that we're trying to catch up to that. And I find that, yes, we do need, digital, and we need IT and everything, but we're kind of losing the concept too. So I'm finding that there's that challenge there as well. Also, we need to understand students, not only Indigenous, but also students that are coming abroad and coming in, and their mental health. You gotta understand, you can't, expect to assess a child when they're under distress. There's something going on at home. They just witnessed something that they're no longer there with. It's just the challenges that we need to consider, and then how can we fully help them? I see a lot of questions about, well, how can I change literacy? But you gotta change the thinking as well. Because we just, we look at data and we're like, okay, this child's on this side, you're on that side. Like, we gotta do better.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that reminder of seeing the whole child and taking time to get to know each other. Yeah. There's two questions I think I can tag on together here that I think are really, really good questions. The first on changing demographics. The face of Alberta is rapidly changing with record. Oh, my screen jumped. Now I've lost it. There it went. With rapid migration into the province. Our new Albertans include Ukrainian temporary residents, refugees, newcomers, economic immigrants, and others. There are unique literacy issues within these groups. What are your thoughts about maximizing impact within these demographics to ensure that they have access to early literacy supports? And how will this be measured? The worry that people are falling through the cracks. And I wonder if that also connects to that question that I flagged before too, about how can we destigmatize low literacy in the many different communities that it touches.
I'm going to go off of Sarah's theme of collaboration on this one. In the last, I think CBC just reported this morning, CB had 7,000 new students added to our system this year. And last year, the CB had over 7,800 students who were newcomers to Canada. And that is an incredible, beautiful thing. It is also a really complex challenge. And it is not something that can happen in one classroom by itself or through one individual by themselves. But this discussion and our change, especially in Calgary and the increasing population that we're experiencing, all of our different organizations, how is it that we create a barrier-free system? This is what's rolling around in my head right now. What does a barrier-free system look like for a family coming, so to our Welcome Center, every day? Where else do they then have to go? Who else do they then have to see? And while we work tirelessly, our staff work tirelessly to build those connections, to make sure they are aware of all of the different resources, so that when we're addressing literacy, there are connections, that there's an opportunity for economic resiliency for these families. It's not something that can be done organization by organization by organization. And while there are tables that exist in the city currently, I might suggest that we need to expand that table to consider federal, provincial government, municipal, as well as community, outside nonprofit, to really consider the strategic moves we each make and how it is we do that over time in a way that is both responsive to immediate, but also looks to the future. And there are some concrete things that we could do that I think are important next steps, but it cannot be one organization solely looking at what they're doing. We need to do it alongside others.
Thank you. How about you, Sarah?
I agree entirely. I think when we think about changing demographics and people coming to Calgary and so many newcomers tell me that their first piece of ID was a library card. Because it is the place where they have access to so many things. Not only, we talked about digital literacy, you can print for free at the library too, if you don't have a printer at home. Like access to digital literacy, access to technology, access to computers, all of those things that are important for a newcomer coming, but they come with family. and they come because they want to build a life with their family. And so we do absolutely need to be connected and collaborate in how we serve and how we support. And I think about that piece. I think about how we continue to evaluate the demographics of who are here, the collections that we purchase, making sure that we have collections in multiple different languages, making sure that we are continuing to diversify our collections so people can see themselves and families can see themselves reflected, and making sure that we work in collaboration with a lot of not just our organizations, but settlement service agencies as well, who are welcoming people and who are able to introduce them to the wide variety of resources that are out there to support, so that folks feel welcome and a sense of belonging so early on in their community. And I'm sitting here, and Elise is here, and there was a newcomer who shared that he and his family, in a story that was published about that they felt a sense of belonging here at the Central Library for the first time. And I think that's what we're looking for. That's what we want to create, and we have to do it together.
Thank you. What about for you, Bella? Destigmatizing.
Yeah, so basically I agree with the two ladies here. But I still see that, for example, there's a lot of assistance that we know that comes into a lot of people that come in, and that's excellent, and Canada is really commended for that. But we also have to realize too that we need to do a little more for our Indigenous population as well. We tend to not be fulfilled in some areas, and that could be just again due to the demographics. For example, I had a family wanted to go to this particular school because it offered football for a certain family. Well, they'll be turned down because they don't live in that area. So, there's a lot of challenges that need to be fair and equitable for everyone, and when that's changed, then I think everyone will feel that they're welcome in the community. So looking at it through the perspective of myself being Indigenous, that's what we're faced with. But I do like all what you do for the ones coming in. And I had a conversation with an individual that came from Ukraine, and they'd never go back, and they say they love Canada. And I agree, I love Canada too. Yeah, but we just have to remember that we have people here that we need to really think about and get this literacy up for them as well.
Thank you for that. This is, we need to wrap it up. This has been really, really great. So I have one last question that I wanted to ask you. A lot of people have asked questions here that are really specific about where they can get decodable books, and what exactly can they do if their child is struggling with low literacy? Where can they find some good resources? So I want to give each of you a chance to kind of sum up if you want to leave one last point. And also if you had one or two specific tips about where people can go to find things that you've maybe found helpful recently. I think there's a lot of people here who they might appreciate that.
Well, maybe start around, there are a number of questions around resources and what that looks like. One of the things that we prioritized in alignment with the new curriculum is we looked at what are the foundational resources that must be in existence at every school, regardless of which school, where it is, doesn't matter, that every school have access to these resources that will ensure, so such as decodable text, other components, and also diverse text. So between those two priorities, we worked through a team of fabulous experts on our staff alongside teachers and recommendations, and have set out that ongoing plan of continued resourcing with decodable text. So that was a #1 priority in alignment with the new curriculum. We also then published videos for parents around teaching phonemic awareness and what that looks like at home. Why do we use decodable text? What do you even mean when you say decodable text? and why that matters, in fact. And so we've developed a great deal of resources and videos that are quick and short for families. I also just want to acknowledge we have Dr. Doug Wilms here, and because the Left Unread article speaks about the early years evaluation, which Doug created and wrote, and is a good friend of mine. We talk a lot about literacy and the need for the access to text that allows students to practice those exact skills and that families can utilize as well. And please don't take when I talk about something like decodable text as a really narrow definition of what needs to only happen. It's always about that full extent of all of the types of text that we wish to utilize. And then when we just think about what is it that we do around teaching, the layout of our teaching practices in our literacy framework, we set out systemic and system-wide professional learning that is going to not change. Because this has to be, we can't switch to something new. This needs to be our continued focus and deepen over time so that teachers aren't feeling like they're continually being thrown something else they need to do. And that is our commitment, is to remain there with that focus in every school across the city.
Thank you. Sarah?
There's lots of great resources in the library website, very similar to what you said. Strategies for how to help your child learn how to read, book lists galore, and physically in our locations, we've done a lot of work around literacy in making our picture book bins child height and very friendly, and really highlighting picture book art, which is amazing. And more kids check out books because of it. But we've also done some specific work around those early learners, those early learning to read books, that every publisher has a different setup for how, what an early learner is at what level. And we're gonna be rolling out throughout the system a setup that makes it really easy for kids to find the curated books that are gonna work for them as they move through the levels. But you know, beyond our website and beyond our collections, talk to our staff. Library staff are experts in early literacy. They're experts in providing you and helping you find the books that you need for your child and helping your child find books that they're going to be excited about too. And there's so many great programs that help reading become fun. And there's direct supports there as well. So, you know, between multiple organizations, there's a lot there to discover, and there's a lot of joy to be had as a family through this learning to read journey, and enjoy it. Enjoy the Paw Patrol books along the way.
Thanks. Don't say Paw Patrol.
Do we all have a jingle in our heads?
Yes, now we do. How about for you, Bella?
Yeah, so for decodable text, we have been using it. We just use it not directly from the library, but we do just get it from what the interests of our students have. So based on that, that's what we do. And parents, we hope they're using it at home, but we do make tons of paperwork to take home. And I know some people think that's not the right approach, but for us it works.
Yeah, lots of photocopying. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. This has been really great. Thank you all for your great questions. I know you've got some time. I'm going to hand it over to the Master of Ceremonies here, but I hope that this gives you fodder for some great discussions about next steps that I'm sure you all will have as well.
Everyone, your panel.